Let the world know that these people who stand in our way right now, we will never forget their names. Their names are scarred into our minds for the rest of our lives. And every fucking time they get on TV and they pretend to fight for our interests, we will hold their fucking feet to the receipts, to the fucking fire of the actual things that they said. We will never forget. And we will never let them live it down. A lot of games where we talk about the importance of socialism or the importance of Bernie as a soft step for humankind in the direction of a more communal future, one that is inclusive of everybody, one where we even get to have a future whatsoever. The belief that the future is compromised, or the understanding that the existing infrastructure, both ideologically and also in material productive forms, is the cancellation of the future for most of us, is something that we don't get to wish into existence. It's something that I, knocking on doors by myself in isolation for the rest of my life, or Twitch streaming alone, it would never be sufficient enough to be able to get the things done necessary, to get the exposure necessary, to get the messages out there to people in time to turn around a world that is seeing rising climate destabilization at increasing speeds every year, when politicians are incentivized to turn off their ears and not listen to science, when people are expected to have to go find their own insurance, and then the politicians that are bought out by those private insurance companies, they get these people to literally go around and talk about how we have the freedom to choose our own private health insurance, when any working person who's ever been in any sort of health crisis knows for an absolute fact that the health insurance companies are our enemy, that their goal is to scam us, that their goal is to resist giving us the health care that we pay for privately, if we're able to afford it. People like Joe Biden have been on the nipple of big oil and private insurance and perpetual unending wars and racist mass incarceration for our entire lives. These people come from fraternities and sororities where they got C's or D's, barely scraping through their classes, where their rich-ass parents wrote angry letters to administration, who then tweaks things to trump whatever the professor actually grades on those students. Those professors who will grade these children of privilege negatively will have their jobs jeopardized. These people from these fraternities and these sororities are given participation trophies and told that they are the smart, that they are the beautiful, that they are the natural inheritors of the managerial positions to fight for the ruling class's interests against the working class. And that is just one part of what maintains what we call the status quo, which is a stupid hippie way of referring to the existing monolithic, hegemonic, neoliberal order. And neoliberal is not just the same as capitalism. Neoliberal means capitalism, but that punishes poor people and says, well, it's just math. It's just math, and it's just the way that it needs to be, when it absolutely does not need to be this way at all. And now we've got people who are saying, oh, well, Bernie's lost on Super Tuesday. By the way, that's not necessarily true. There are a ton of delegates that have not been assigned yet, a lot of votes that have not been counted, and there's a lot of problems with that because Hillary won California and the votes were out like way sooner, like within a day last time. But this time it's like, okay, well, it's been a fucking week. What's going on with that? But anyway, there's this whole narrative about how Bernie lost it and he lost it to the black vote. Black voters saved the Democratic Party. That's a lie. Bernie is still polling better with black populations across the United States overall at the national level in general, and people would know this if they listened to Breonna Joy Gray. He just got the endorsement from Reverend Jesse Jackson. It is a huge thing, and we're going to watch it. It's a very important moment in the campaign's history. And it speaks volumes to Biden's campaign that will act as though it is working within the tradition of MLK and Jesse Jackson when Biden says that he got into politics marching for and sitting in for civil rights. These are both lies. He never sat in. He never marched. These are documented lies. He has been a documented liar his entire career because these people who are on the nipple of big oil and unending war and the war on drugs, the war on terror, unending wars for oil, unending wars against the working class, unending wars to maintain and justify systemic poverty that is necessary to keep the status quo alive. These people on that nipple, these sorority and fraternity kids of privilege who never had to work a fucking day in their lives, as long as they say that they will fucking rub the backs of and do the work for the ruling class, they're all like, oh, well, Bernie's losing because he didn't reach out to us and he didn't talk to us. And it's like, y'all don't give a fuck about the working class. You never have. And if Bernie were to sell out to those people, then he'd be just like them. He will not capitulate to them. And he has not for his entire life. Back before it was cool to virtue signal as though you were socialist, like fucking, like almost all of the candidates were early on in this campaign. Bernie was taking a stand for Reverend Jesse Jackson at the exact same time that Biden was saying that Jesse Jackson and MLK were against coalition building. What they mean by being against coalition building is they mean you're not willing to work with, hobnob with, and do backroom wheeling and dealing with ruling class, managerial, children of privilege who think it's just their fucking turn. Who think it's just their turn. It's not their turn. It's nobody's turn. Nobody deserves presidency. Nobody deserves to be a senator. And no system rightfully, naturally establishes that those are even positions that we should have to have or respect. This is an outdated system. It's garbage, but there are ways that working within the electoral system as it currently exists, on the one hand, can have certain degrees of harm reduction, is something that we call it, but it's more than that. It's more than that because right now, when we're talking about combating hegemonic neoliberalism, its ideology, its institutions, and the players it has groomed and then put into positions of power and influence in the media and in politics and in Wall Street, wherever. Combating that system requires getting the word out, but getting the word out that their interests are not our interests cannot be done by working with them in backroom deals and being like, oh yeah, we're going to work within this. We're going to totally we're just going to totally compromise our values and go with them. No, we would better lose. We would better lose and let the world fucking know that we had a normie socialist candidate who has never compromised his fucking values. We would better to lose and actually people see how fucking despicable these pieces of shit who stand in our way actually are. Let the world know that these people who stand in our way right now, we will never forget their names. Their names are scarred into our minds for the rest of our lives. And every fucking time they get on TV and they pretend to fight for our interests, we will hold their fucking feet to the receipts, to the fucking fire of the actual things that they said. We will never forget. And we will never let them live it down. And electoral politics and the mainstream media are 100% compromised and working for the ruling class, and we will never let them live it down. And we will always be like, yo, we had somebody who in every way, shape, and form, in every fucking poll, was beating Donald Trump way over everybody else on average, way beyond the margin of error, which Hillary never got out of the margin of error when it came to beating Trump. Bernie's always had the better shot, and it's the poor people's fault for not getting behind us because we don't actually represent them. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, enjoy that identity. And enjoy your fucking virtue signaling, because real working people and people like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Nina Turner and Cornel West and Bernie Sanders have been fighting for our interests their entire lives, and they refuse to compromise on their values. And these people who will not get out of our way, these people who say that they're for Medicare for all and that it is a human right, who then turn and do a fucking complete 180 and go right back on everything that they said. We have their names. We have their receipts. We will not forget. So, what's up? Who's Damon? Silver Spook, Atomic Source. Good to see you all. Welcome to the stream. This is going to be a video that goes up on my YouTube as well. I want it to be a sort of definitive statement on my position with Bernie, because I don't care if he wins or loses at all. Of course, I want him to fucking win. Of course, it is important that he wins, but not if he has to compromise on his values. Okay. So, I want to read you all something before we play this game, Super Bernie World. Let me see if I can make this larger. I can't make this larger. Hold on one second. Let's put it on the top. I'm going to read this aloud because I started by saying that we talk about, socialism, it's important and it's a step in the right direction. It's more than a step in the right direction. And when you say harm reduction, I hope that you keep in mind what that actually means. I hope you keep in mind what it actually means for someone to stand by his values his entire life against all the odds, getting slapped in the face by Democrats, literally slapped in the face because you supported Jesse Jackson before it was cool, before you start lying about fighting for civil rights because you're a piece of shit like Biden, who literally has been documented lying his entire life, just like Hillary Clinton. All right, listen up. This is what it means. This is what harm reduction is about. TLDR, go vote tomorrow. I'll tell you why I'm voting. This is by a friend of, my partner, Ann, who's in the chat. Hi, Ann. I was just on the phone. And here we go, folks. On June 17, 2017, my husband suffered a cardiac event while driving to our son's birthday party. He was in a coma for the better part of 2 weeks. He wasn't expected to survive, but he did. While Joe was in a nonverbal state, I started his paperwork for disability payments and Medicare. I had been told that it would take a while to kick in, so I wanted to get it started as soon as I could. Once Joe turned the corner, I began this process. He hadn't even been discharged from the hospital before I had filed everything that Social Security required. He was so full of hope when he was discharged. He knew that the medical journey he was about to embark on was going to be difficult, but he was still here to walk it. So we were going to take this journey hand in hand. Joe was uninsured. He went to a low-income clinic for his medical needs. Our family made too much for him to qualify for Medicaid. He needed a heart transplant because his heart was only operating at about 12%. We couldn't even talk about a heart transplant until he lost weight, which would require bariatric surgery, which we couldn't really discuss until he was insured. So we waited. The waiting was awful, and there was always some reason as to why we had to wait longer. There are mandatory waiting periods to declare yourself disabled. There are meetings upon meetings and appointments on appointments. We hired a lawyer to help with hearings, and after about a year and a half after his initial hospitalization, we finally started receiving Social Security payments. All this was wonderful, and it felt like a long time coming, but we were still waiting for insurance. Something happened to my Joe in 2019. Being that sick and being told no constantly took an emotional toll on him. He wouldn't leave the house. He started pulling away from me and the kids. He stopped living and was just surviving. He was in the hospital more often on a near monthly basis, and we'd have to file more paperwork to receive state assistance to pay for the seemingly constant hospitalizations. And what happened during those hospitalizations? Very little. They would pump him full of medications that would take the excess water weight off of him because he was constantly retaining water, which made his already fragile heart work harder. They'd do this for a few days, and then they would send him home. It wasn't profitable to help him any further. I can't tell you how many times I was asked to leave the hospital because I was screaming this fact to the heavens. He finally became eligible for Medicare in December of 2019, nearly 30 months after his coma. We went to get his card in January, and then things would turn around. All those doors started opening. He had a bariatric surgery consult. Nurses started calling him to check on him. I was thrilled, and I was insanely angry that it took so long. But I was going to put it behind me because now we could take steps to making Joe better. I was going to get my funny, vibrant husband back. Joe was in the ER 2 days before his death. He was coughing constantly. He couldn't breathe. He wasn't sleeping or eating. His back hurt, but he didn't want to go in because he was tired of the ER visits. I had to have his father call him and grump at him. I called an ambulance for him because I knew that he wouldn't go in otherwise. I picked him up from the ER later that day, and they told him he had an upper respiratory infection. We went home. We had dinner. We went to bed. It was a normal night. The next day, he seemed better. He ate a little. He texted me at work to tell me he was eating. I woke up the following morning to find my husband dead on my kitchen floor. I received his Medicare card in the mail on the day of his memorial service. There were a lot of factors in Joe's death. The biggest one was waiting for insurance, waiting for coverage, waiting for help. Guys, we need Medicare for all. I know that there are other families that are in the same boat, and my story is all too common across the nation. I miss him so much. No one should die in our country because of lack of health care. But that is exactly what happened to my Joe, and I am powerfully angry about it. I can't help Joe, but I can tell his story and use my voice to push for universal health care. I don't want this to happen to another person. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. The love of my life is gone, and he didn't have to go. Please vote tomorrow. We need a change, and we can't lose anyone else to this. And if you don't already know stories like that, you're not a part of the working class the way that I fucking was, all right? You don't know what kind of privilege you have if you don't know people like this. If you don't know people who sought rehab but couldn't afford it because it was too expensive and so they overdosed, even though they wanted rehab. Or they couldn't get methadone because fucking Republicans were gutting those clinics. People do not become locked into cycles of poverty or addiction because they are purely self-interested or because they don't have better things to do or know how to spend money on bread. They get locked into cycles of poverty because we live in a system that alienates us from one another, that forces people to have jobs that provide socially necessary labor. And then we don't give them access to the basic necessities that they need to be able to live a dignified life where they will be able to spend time with their children and grandparents. And it's not just poor people. All right. I've worked for rich people. I've worked for rich people my whole life. I mean, lots of the businesses that I worked in obviously were corporations where the people who are sitting on those boards are getting paid pretty handsomely. But that is not all. I have also done yard work for very bougie people. Okay. And one of those people was a professor of Latin American history. He was the chair of his department of history. And when I met him, he was emeritus, which means basically retired, but he would still teach classes sometimes. He still had an office on campus. He's very respected, not only on campus, not only very well loved by other professors and students, but by immigrant communities in our city. Because he spent a lot of his life in South America studying colonialism, studying the effects of neoliberalism and the ways in which it undermines democracy, working class democracy, and elevates and installs puppet, fascist, right-wing dictators, like we just saw happen in Bolivia, like has been going on in Brazil. I'm not gonna dive into a deep dive about Latin America right now, but I will say that this professor was very well loved by immigrant communities. He was a very, very important figure in the broader city. He knew everybody and was constantly fighting to help people. But, he was also pretty well off. He liked Bernie. He's kind of taking what he can get. Well, I started working for him. This was probably 2015. I would do yard work for him and his wife. I watched his deteriorating health. I watched, folks, I don't know if you've ever seen someone in the later times of their life as things start to fail. But the world we live in right now, one where big pharmaceutical companies and a private health insurance private health insurance companies have a monopoly on healthcare, and the hospitals play within that framework. It's very dehumanizing. They pump you full of medications that have not been adequately tested because you are the test subject. You are the guinea pig. Like my friend Gideon, who's on 7 medications, and if he tries to stop smoking weed, he starts bleeding through his skin because that's one of the side effects of the medications that he's on. And every time they see him, they just want to try out new medications to stack on top of the old ones. Well, I was watching this happening to this professor, and then he took a fall, and he was in the hospital screaming. This is this very respected man in the community, screaming for months because they would not give him painkillers. For months before he died. Screaming, shitting the fucking bed, reduced to an animal state. And his wife was so traumatized. She was so relieved that when he died because of the way the hospital was treating him. It should not be this way. We should not have to deal with this. Hospitals are supposed to help people. Doctors are supposed to help us. But a for-profit medical industry is vile. It's evil. It's torture. It's misery. And he was a fucking rich man. Well respected in his communities. He was a white guy. Like, what do you think would have happened if he wasn't? They wouldn't have even tolerated his screaming for that long. They would have fucking kicked his ass out and he would have been homeless. They would have deported him. Like, is that the future that we have to look forward to? Fucking retirement homes and screaming until you die for months because we prioritize profit and allow fucking people like Joe Biden to run their fucking mouths in public when they themselves need to be put the fuck down. I'm all about it. At this point, I'm fucking Central Park 2020. This shit is insane. We shouldn't have to deal with this. This stuff is absolutely preventable, people. And so with that said, yeah, what hope do women in pain have then? Yeah, exactly. Oh, fuck. All right, so we're about to play this Bernie game, but I'm actually going to pull up. Which one is it? I've got a few videos here. This one right here. It's a $27 video. $27 is Bay, one of my favorite Twitch streamers, and Bernie propagandists. Okay. Right now, people keep trying to make the Bernie campaign out to be about Bernie, and that's not the point. Everyone knows that's not supposed to be the point. The point is supposed to be us. It's not Bernie, it's us. Bernie is just a name that we rally around because there's not a lot of people who survive the tests of time in Washington without compromising their values in almost every way, shape, and form. Okay? The opportunity posed by someone like him at this point in our history is the kind that we may not see again for a couple of decades, folks. But you all know that. How do I turn off this noise in the background? There we go. All right. Well, we'll get to Warren. We'll get to that. Hold on. Do we have volume? We don't have volume. Let's get the volume up.
I'm drawn to your plan for universal health care, but I'm skeptical since I've been hearing about universal health care from every political candidate I've voted for. What makes your plan different and able to become a reality?
Thank you very much, Alicia. And you're right. You have been hearing about that. And you've been hearing about it, or Americans have been hearing about it for a lot longer than you've been alive. Teddy Roosevelt, way back when, over 100 years ago, talked about universal health care. FDR talked about it in the 30s and 40s. Truman talked about it. Johnson did something about it. Obama talked about it. Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon even talked about it. But what has been the problem all of this time? The problem is, at the end of the day, if we want universal health care, if we want to do what every other major country on earth does. This is not a radical idea. I live in Burlington, Vermont, 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They do it. Everybody has health care. You don't take out your wallet or your credit card when you go to the doctor or the hospital. They spend 1/2 as much per capita as we spend. So, Alicia, the question is, why hasn't it happened? And the answer is, we have not had the courage as a people to take on the greed and the corruption of the healthcare industry. And it has everything to do with the fact that the pharmaceutical industry over the last several decades has spent billions of dollars on lobbying and campaign contributions. They buy Congress. The drug companies and the insurance companies will not buy me. I don't take their money. I don't need their money. We are going to take them on in America. We will not pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and we will, in fact, move to a Medicare for all single-payer system, and it will cost the average American substantially less than that family is paying today.
Cory Booker said that healthcare for everybody is a human right. And then he endorsed a Joe Biden. How many other candidates, folks in the chat, how many other candidates who have endorsed Joe Biden said that Medicare for all is a good plan and that it is, or a plan akin to it, where everyone has access to healthcare, quality healthcare, without the need to pay co-pays, deductibles, etc. How many of them have said that it was a human right? How many of them have then turned and backed a candidate who not only says that it's not a human right, but who says that it's pie in the sky? How many? I sure hope that Warren does not endorse Joe Biden, because
Hi.
you know, and I everyone I know is like, you know, more left than the average Democrat anyway, and so thinks that she is you know, way more capitalist than Bernie is, and she talks about humanizing capitalism, and they already had issues with her for that reason. But you know, for me, I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what you call yourself, because I was raised in a Christian tradition, not a very good one, not a very good version of Christianity, but nonetheless, I did read the words of Jesus, and you know, they're hit and miss sometimes for me, but something that rang true, that still rings true today, and I don't really consider myself practicing in any sort of, well, a lot of people just think that I'm not Christian, but you know, obviously I consider myself some kind of cultural Christian. The words that ring most true for me is that you will know his followers by their fruit, not by their words. It's not about the ideology you espouse. It's not about the isms you like to curate your branded identity with. It's not about what you post on Instagram or Twitter. It's about what you do over time. It is about character. And you know, character is an incomplete story. It's never done, because history is never done being told, being interpreted, being researched, being understood. And every person alive today could be a different person before they're dead, for better or for worse, in ways that could undermine the entire story we were telling ourselves about that person. Absolutely. And that's why Aristotle, for instance, said that the person cannot be judged until after they're dead. Now, the thing is because people live on through history, and because history is often written by oppressors, and because there will be opportunities for other voices to emerge, new perspectives, facts, and interpretations to arise. The truth is that no one is ever done. But character, even though it is an incomplete story, matters a whole lot more than what you say you are. Okay? And, you know, so I've not like written Warren off for any of the ideological reasons. I think that, being a Harvard professor is just as potentially good as it is potentially bad. It's all about why you're there, how you're there, what you do while you're there, what you're doing it for while you're there, and what you're going to do after you are there. But these are the words, and this is a video that I just put together the other day. It's very short. It's only a couple minutes long. These are the words of Warren speaking truth. We don't know if she was speaking truth because she believes in it in any sort of a committed way where her character will prove out. But nevertheless, this is a moment where she was flirting with taking the right road. We don't know what she's doing right now. Apparently fucking off on SNL. She thinks it's funny. She thinks that this is fun and games. But this right here is the good Warren. This is the Warren that put a lot of real progressives onto her staff. This is the Warren that spoke to the hearts and minds of people fighting the good fight.
This is my first chance here in Massachusetts to introduce my dear friend Bernie Sanders. It's going to happen. We believe that health care is not some frivolity available for the rich. It is a basic human right for every human being. Yes, climate change is real, and we have a moral obligation to protect this earth for our children and our grandchildren. Yes.
At a time when the biggest financial institutions in this country were trying to put the squeeze on millions of hardworking families, Joe Biden is on the side of the credit card companies.
Democracy is not for sale. We must overturn Citizens United, and we must return this government to the people. And that's why I wanted to be here with my friend Bernie Sanders. Come on out.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the go. You know the thing.
I'm with Bernie on Medicare for All, and let me tell you why. I've spent a big chunk of my life studying why families go broke. And one of the number one reasons is the cost of health care, medical bills. And that's not just for people who don't have insurance. It's for people who have insurance. Look at the business model of an insurance company. It's to bring in as many dollars as they can in premiums and to pay out as few dollars as possible for your health care. That leaves families with rising premiums, rising co-pays, and fighting with insurance companies to try to get the health care that their doctors say that they and their children need. Medicare for All solves that problem. And I understand there are a lot of politicians who say, oh, it's just not possible, we just can't do it, have a lot of political reasons for this.
Much of what he's proposing is very, very much pie in the sky.
What they're really telling you is they just won't fight for it. Well, healthcare is a basic human right, and I will fight for basic human rights. That means Senator, if you're not going to fix that problem, you can't take away the last shred of protection for these families.
Okay. You're very good, Professor.
Bernie Sanders fights for what's right, and he fights from the heart, and that's how we win. That's right.
I put that shit to slow motion
Bernie.
because
It
people
is
need to fucking see that expression on his fucking face. Look at Joe Biden's face.
You're very good, Professor.
Look at this guy behind him. When I say Central Park 2020, when I say we probably need to get the choppy boys out at this point, when I say I'm an agnostic about revolution, but these last couple of weeks, this fucking perpetual smear campaign and gaslighting and election meddling on the part of the mainstream establishment Democrats, who are just the managerial class for fucking capitalists, and the fucking mainstream media machine that manufactures consent of the unaware, of the people who just fucking eat it up like it's fed to them on a spoon. Yeah, when I talk about Choppy Boys coming out, I'm talking about this fucking jocular, blatantly misogynistic piece of shit, literally in 2005. 2005 was yesterday for Biden. In fact, he probably still thinks it's 2005. I mean, hell, he keeps saying that we just need to, keep the Senate and flip the House, and that he's running for Senate, and that, if you don't like it, run for the other Biden. He doesn't understand when it is. I'm not sure he ever understood that he lived in history and that it was his job to help us make it. But like I said, these sorority boys and these, sorority girls and fraternity boys who are handed participation trophies their entire lives. So as long as they sell out, they don't understand that they live in history. They think that they live at the end of history, and they think that it's all a game. They think it's all a game of trying to play within language to say the right things, so that you'll be able to get the applause of people who do end up showing up for your shit without, losing them all, so that you can properly represent the interests of the ruling class while speaking to regular people in terms that they will understand. This guy in 2005, though, this piece of shit, look at him.
Good professor.
You haven't seen him talking to Anita Hill, though, have you? I know for a fact that Anne hasn't, because I just asked her like literally today, unless she watched it since then. But this video right here starts with that moment, folks.
Welcome, Professor Hill.
I think, yeah. Right. Here we fucking go. If you haven't seen this, okay, How Not to Question a Victim of Sexual Assault by Joe Biden.
Can you tell the committee what was the most embarrassing of all the incidences that you have alleged? It is appropriate to ask Professor Hill anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility.
What she wants you to say is, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, not for the way you were treated. I think that might be closer.
Well, but I'm sorry the way she got treated. But in terms of, I never heard say, if you go back and look what I said.
Hold on, am I speeding this up? Oh, Jesus Christ. Hold on. Slow it down.
Anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility.
What she wants you to say is, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, not for the way you were treated. I think that might be closer.
Well, but I'm sorry the way she got treated. In terms of, I never heard say, if you go back and look what I said and didn't say, I don't think I treated her badly.
What you just saw is a clip from a stream that I did this week. I will start taking clips from my streams, putting them up on my YouTube channel. But my streams are currently occurring on twitch.tv/theory_plebe. For those who do not regularly tune in to follow or subscribe with Twitch streamers, I just wanted to let you know that Twitch is pretty neat. It's a pretty cool way of creating a space for different things. And the Majority Report is on there. A similar channel, Lucid Fox, is on there. And there's a lot of new lefty Twitch streamers emerging on Twitch because of the suppression that we are experiencing on YouTube, where it makes it so hard for people who are new to politics to find alternative coverage. And now I'm not normally doing electoral coverage, okay? But I'm more of I'm not so much a political science person as I am a political philosophy and critical theory person, and so that's kind of my approach to streaming is, I might use contemporary events, but I'm going to, in the course of doing that, I'm going to talk about books. I'm going to talk about reading books, the importance of opening that dimension of your mind, and we're going to work through classics from the critique of political economy and critical theory into contemporary ways of extending those analyses and either overhauling or expanding or adapting those theories to our changing material conditions so that we can better understand the world that we live in, because that's ultimately the goal. And I'm proud of the kind of space that I cultivate. I really do love the folks who are regulars. It's a good time, so please join us. And if you're not able to join us when we're streaming, then that's okay. Right now I don't have a regular streaming day or time, but if you download the Twitch app and make sure to follow me, you will get notified when I am streaming. I highly recommend doing that. If you're a patron of mine, and if you are, then your name is going by on this side of the screen here right now, and thank you very much for your support. I am an entirely small donation funded creator, and it, every little bit helps free up my time, energy, and attention to be able to focus on this work. But I have to work other kinds of odd jobs to be able to make ends meet right now, but this is ultimately what I feel called to do, and I feel most passionate about. And it's one of those things that I think that I'm passionate about it, so that's why I do it. But I really appreciate the people who help make it possible. But if you're a patron, as I was saying, you will be able to see whenever I start streaming, because I do always let my patrons know, I'm about to go, I'm about to stream, hop in if you can. And the thing about Twitch is my streams can go for 5 to 7 hours. So don't think you have to be there for the whole thing. Just be there for, just drop in and say hi, see what's going on. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like like back in the day, like there was like a friend's house where people would go and hang out. That's basically what Twitch streams are like, except that they're like almost live, independent TV shows. So hope to see you there. I hope if I don't see you there that you will enjoy these clips when I mine them and put them up on the YouTube. My roadside rants will continue, but not as frequently as they were. And there are video essays in the works, on the way. There's a book that I'm writing right now, on the way. Those things are all background processes, and especially when it comes to video essays, it's in process. But I just finished a move, and my computer, half of it has not arrived right now, so I'm working on my laptop alone, which really ties my hands, restrains me from being able to be as productive as normal, but nevertheless, they persist. So, thanks so much, much love, and take care. Like, follow, subscribe.